Hey guys, last insight for the week, although it's only 3 because I needed 3 this week. So you'll see this one drop in New Zealand, you'll see it on Friday. Otherwise, Thursday for most Americans that follow me, but somewhere in there, wherever you're around the world, you'll figure it out. There are only 3 this week, this is the last one. So this is in Luke 10 still, but we're in verses 38 through 42. And you also sort of want to look at John 11:20 and 12:2, because this is the other places where Mary and Martha are both mentioned doing different things. That gives you a broader picture of this whole thing. So I've called this a time for learning and a time for serving. And I'm actually going to disagree with the Come Follow Me manual on the way it puts this, because I don't think while it's true in what it's saying, it doesn't really shed the true light on what was happening in this situation. And it doesn't really focus on the actual reason why Jesus said what he did say. So, let's do that. So, 38, it says, Now it came to pass as they went that they entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. So Martha here has a sister called Mary, and she's invited Christ in, and notice it says, as they went. So not just Christ, his apostles too. So theoretically, there's at least 15, plus herself and her sister. That's 17 people, probably a couple more, into her house. And it's going to feed them. That's a lot of work. We know that. Usually now we wouldn't do that on the spur of the moment. We'd have a great planning. We'd have to make sure we had the food in. It's a lot of effort to cook and clean for that many people. So keep that in mind. Now, and she had a sister called Mary, which also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. Now, in this instance, Mary had actually crossed from what in that day was the man's place, or the woman's place. You say the woman's place is the kitchen. Well, not necessarily just the kitchen, but the room that they were in for lounging was specifically for the men folk at that time on the earth. I know that if you try and pull that on me now, you'd get an earful, probably a slap, and I'm going to sit in that room anyway. So Mary had a lot of bravery to cross this threshold, sit and learn at the feet of Christ, because she wanted to be a teacher of his word as well. And what Christ actually goes on to say, really, when he says what he does, and we'll get to that, is that, Mary, you've done a great thing because you can be a teacher too. Women are great teachers. That's what he's saying. Because you remember, Christ is not sexist whatsoever, at all. If anything, he loves women a little more, which is pretty cool. But he loves everyone. But he really makes a point of showing everyone how important women are. And the sad part is people overlook that and think of this as Martha did something bad, Mary did something better. And it's like, well, no, actually, it was what was right for them on that day. So let's keep reading. So Mary's sitting at his feet, learning. Martha was cumbered about much serving, obviously, for 17 plus people, probably by herself in the kitchen or the cooking area, and came to Jesus and said, Lord, dost thou not care that my sister hath left me to serve alone? Because that day Martha was serving and Mary was learning. And it's not so much that she was doing it alone. It's that recognition of what you've chosen to do is a good thing. What Mary has chosen to do is a good thing. What's wrong with what you're doing is the attitude you just had. That's the problem. So Jesus answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things. But one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part which shall not be taken away from her. Now, people interpret that as, there's a time when being taught, you need to go and sit at Jesus' feet and learn. And while that is true, but there's also times when the greater thing is serving, because that's what's needed. It's just an interesting thing here. And people really don't quite get that. And a lot of teachers now, even, and probably in Sunday school, you might encounter this come up. And they miss the point. And that, yes, what Mary chose to do was a good thing. But what Martha was choosing to do was also a good thing. But on that situation, on that day, the talent of Martha was serving and the talent of Mary was going to be teaching others. And they were both doing what was the good thing for them at that time. And the reason Jesus said that to her lovingly, as you can see, he says, Martha, Martha, be thou careful, please. You're not troubled. Don't be troubled. You're doing a good thing. You're doing the right thing where you are, and Mary's doing the right thing where she is. She's fulfilling her purpose. You're fulfilling the measure of yours, and it's all good. So if you look at the John verses, it'll talk about another time when Mary sits with Lazarus, their brother, who passes. I remember Jesus raises him from the dead, and we'll get to that in a few weeks. Probably about 3 weeks away, I think. Might not be as soon, actually. Might be quicker. But anyway. And Mary sits there with her brother, doing a good thing, sitting with the deceased person and mourning. Martha, on the other hand, runs to Christ, hearing that he's coming and saying, had you not come soon, if you'd come sooner, he'd be alive. What are we supposed to do? She was still going about doing the serving. So you can see that they're just very different characteristics of women, of people, where one decided that actually I'm the quieter teaching, more that one, and Martha was like, actually I'm the one who organizes and directs and does the work in the kitchen. You know, at Relief Society church events or wherever you go, there's always that one sister in the kitchen, always, no matter. Excuse me, I can think of a couple of them. There's always the one that's teaching, and that's usually where I'm at. My friend Steph, that's account director of this account, of the Facebook account we have. We're usually the ones teaching. We get called upon last minute, like there's no teacher here, and they look at one of us and go, you want to teach? And we're like, if we're there together, we'll do it together, or if it's one of us, we're like, yeah, sure, because that's our skill and our talent, and that's what we're fulfilling. But we don't have a problem. We don't be like, oh, I don't want to do that again, you didn't give me any notice. It's the attitude. So there's some interesting things in there around to think about that. So really deconstruct that and have a look at it. So that's why I'm saying I'm not disagreeing so much with the Come Follow Me manual and its take on it. I'm just saying it's not deep enough to really get that Jesus wasn't saying that she was doing something wrong by not listening to him, because she listened to him plenty. And he wasn't saying that Mary was doing better because she decided to sit at his feet and learn. She was just doing the best thing for her on that day, and Martha was doing the best thing that was needed on that day, and that circumstance, that occasion. So that's what we've got to think about. On whatever occasion, what is good for each individual, the day and the circumstance, and where is it that we're needed? And when we're in there doing that, no matter how much we might look at others and go, oh, I wish I had more help, and could she not come help me, or could they not come help me? It's like you're doing what you need to do, and they're doing what they need to do. And sometimes, yes, you can get more help and you need that. But there's better ways to ask than probably what Martha was feeling, and Christ could sense that. So, it's not that Martha was ignoring Christ. Not at all. She was serving him and his apostles by making dinner. That was important. They were hungry. It was her attitude that was off, not her choice of labor. So we all have Mary days, the learning experience, the absorbing of Christ's teachings, and we all have Martha days too, where we work, serve, and provide for our families. The lesson is to find the balance and good attitude. That's the lesson. It will depend on the day, the circumstances, and requirement, how we best use our talents for the good part. Because that's what he says too, that she's chosen the good part. Because it was big and brave of her to step out there, and I think that's what Martha was maybe thinking, is like, come on, Mary, you're usually in the kitchen with me. And maybe Mary was like, yeah, but that's actually not for me. I'm not really good at kitchen stuff. I think I want to go learn the teaching stuff. You know, we play to our strength. We do better as a team. And it's just learning how to work in that and mesh that together. And while, yes, you can still help. And maybe afterwards, Mary helped clean up. We don't know. We don't know the entire thing that happened. But the lesson in there is that balance and that good attitude that you need to find. How best... So it will depend on the day, circumstances, and requirements of that day, how we best use our talents for the good part and building the kingdom here on earth. That's the lesson of it. Now, President Eyring, he said, each of us, whatever our talents, has service to give, and to do it well always involves learning, not once or for a limited time, but continually. And this was a learning moment, mostly for Martha, although Mary was learning a lot sitting there listening to Christ teach. But this was a learning moment for Martha about how to approach these things better, how to maybe not be looking and having that bitterness. Because I've had that before too, where I'm just like, why am I always the one doing the work? And it's like, well, the organising, because I'm the organiser and the reliable one, and and it's can get a little frustrating. You're like, you just want someone else to do that. But then I also get really inspired by others' like sense of creativity and their expression. And even though I might not hang out with those people a lot because of their lack of organisation, and their lack of planning, they're really frustrating to be friends with. But I still like them in my life because they get me to think of things different. And that's why it's part of that team thing that we need. So there you go. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that really speaks to you, and probably on a deeper level than what the Come Follow Me manual does. And I think it's really important to look at that, because neither of them, again, were doing anything wrong other than Martha's attitude, and that's what he was correcting her on. It was incredibly brave of what Mary was doing, and it was very honourable and good what Martha was doing. It's just different each day for each talent and circumstance, so look at that. Anyway, that's it for this week. I'm glad you joined me here. We'll see you next week. We're going to do more awesome parables, I think, next week. I haven't really looked, to be honest. It's been a busy week coming back off a break, so there you go. But yeah, have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week. Love you guys.